Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids. We're fresh out of the shower again today. This has been, I think that's 2 videos in a row we've recorded back to back, fresh out of the shower. I guess it's just, my brain is just churning in the shower. I'm like, yes, I need to record these ideas straight away as soon as I come out. But in today's video, I'm actually not taking part at the moment in the free-to-play challenge that Hell Hades has organized for the start of 2023. But I've seen a lot of people are really interested in that and enjoying it. And I thought a helpful video for me to put together for you guys, which I don't think I've done before on the channel, is to actually go through and tell you which of the rare champions in the game are actually good, are ones that you're going to max out. I know that people tend to do these videos quite often, and I do find, in my opinion at least, I feel like people tend to be too forgiving, too generous with this, and can list off actually a whole bunch of rares that you're never actually going to use. So for example, if you guys who've been around the channel for a long time will remember when I did my, I think it was 2 year, I think it might have been 2-year review of my channel, my account progress in the game. At the time, I'd only ever maxed out 4 rares at that time. I maxed out more since then for secret rooms, and I'll point out champs that are good for secret rooms. But yeah, 4 rares was all that I had maxed out for my main progress through the game. It's likely to be the same for you, right? Epics are generally speaking just better. Of course, there's exceptions, and that's what I'm going to show you here today. So without any further ado, I've got a list up as well, just in case I forget. There's a lot of champions. Let's dive in. So first of all, Banner Lords, lots of rare champions. Some of them aren't terrible, right? Like these 3 aren't awful, for example, but honestly, I would not bother building any of these champions. You can just ignore all of them and it won't matter. We come to High Elves, guys, and High Elves actually has a few that are really good. Apothecary stands out as one of the best rares in the game, just in general. He's got a defense aura for dungeons, very helpful for that early game progression. Increased speed with turn meter boost, again, amazing for that early game dungeon progression. Amazing for that early game arena progression as well. Triple hit at random A1, fantastic for Fire Knight progression, knocking down the shield. And he brings a heal as well, which is great for like spiders and stuff like that. This is an amazing champ. He's great for that early game clan boss as well. Apothecary for most people is going to be one of those must build rares that's going to help you early on in the game a lot. Personally, on my account, I actually didn't build him because I didn't get him for about 7 or 8 months or something crazy. I was very unlucky, and at that point, I didn't need him. But for most people, you get him early, and he's a game changer. Next up, we have Elhain. Now, quick mention about all of the starter champions. You can pick any starter, and you're going to be just fine. I personally started with Galek, who's definitely considered to be the worst one overall. Doesn't really matter. You're going to be fine. Kale is overall the best starter. However, when it comes to other starter champions, so you pick whatever starter you want and you're going and doing your thing, you pull another starter champion, or any of them worth keeping or any of them worth using, and the answer for all of them is no, they're not worth it. Apart from Elhain, I would hold on to Elhain. This is, you could even feed her early in the game, to be honest. Elhain comes into her own late game for Doom Tower hard secret rooms. What is the reason for that? The reason is her A2 is a 4-turn cooldown AoE, right? And then her A3 is a 3-turn cooldown AoE. She has 2 full AoE attacks. And the reason this is so good is you put her in a stun set for Doom Tower hard secret rooms, which are extremely hard. The ones where you have to use rares only. It's very unusual to get rares with multiple AoE attacks. So she becomes a very good crowd control champion in a stun set. She's got really good base speed, really good, 107. You just have her going super fast in a stun set, and she locks down those waves in the secret rooms. Apart from that, not worth building unless she is your chosen starter. Another one that's worth pointing out, you don't need to hold on to her, RARES. You can farm her from campaigns, so you can go farm her whenever you need her. Definitely one that's worth knowing about, because there is a clan boss comp, or a few variations of a clan boss comp called Myth Air. You can look it up. Deadwood Jedi has lots of videos on this, but Demitha, who's an epic dwarf, Void, epic dwarf, plus RARES, plus some other champions. You can make a very powerful Ultra Nightmare 1-key or even 2-key team, depending on what sort of champs you have. And RARES fits into that, so it's worth pointing it out. Main reason being that she does have, she can cleanse off the stun and gives you increased speed. She does a decent bit of damage with this counterattack when an ally's attacked in a toxic set. But yeah, she not bad. Not a bad champion overall. Only really worth building, though, for that composition. And you can just go farm her in campaign when you get there. But it's worth pointing out because that's quite a relevant composition. Probably the easiest way to do an Ultra Nightmare team for a new player. One of the easiest ways. And then finally, I would say Reliquary Tender is a decent option, not a must build, like not on the level of Apothecary, but a great support champion. She does bring a revive, but it's quite a weak revive, but this can be quite helpful early game. She brings a cleanse as well. This can be very helpful against things like the Nether Spider in Doom Tower. Decrease attack A1. She's a good sort of very early game reviver, right? It's rare to get revived, so she's good for that early game and the cleansing. This is a champion that a lot of people do end up building to get the revive or the cleanse, one of the two. So it's worth pointing out, not necessary. Like, I didn't build her myself, but she's definitely a good one. In the Sacred Order, we have absolutely tons of rares. None of them. I wouldn't bother building any of them. There's a couple of very niche uses for like Templar soloing Bommel, but it's really awkward. Castigators may be okay, but honestly, I think, in my opinion, you can skip every single one of these and you won't mind. Barbarians actually is quite a few good ones as well. High Elves and Barbarians are two of the most stacked factions. So War Maiden is the big one. Farmer from campaign, AoE decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. Amazing for all sorts of progression. She can work at level 50. You can put her to level 60 if you want, but she's a champion that's going to be a must get for nearly everybody. Sentinel is a Doom Tower champion, so this is a bit later in the game, but for some of the rare rooms, he's very good as a HP-based champ. He's very good as well with a high chance to provoke against the Magma Dragon, so this is a very solid champion overall. He's worth building up, or certainly he's at least worth holding on to as someone that you might use in a secret room eventually. Again, any of these secret room champs, you might push them off a little bit. You might feed the first few copies, but maybe hold on to one copy when you've got some space. Soulbond Bowyer then is another one. If you don't get a Cold Heart, she can be absolutely fantastic because she has a full turn meter deplete on a 4-turn cooldown. This can really help you progressing through Spider and Fire Knight, and then she really comes into her own late game for those secret room stuff because her A1 is always an AoE. So every single attack she does is AoE. Put her in a stun set and she brings you so much crowd control. And there's some rooms where you have to use Spirit Rares, where she really is very, very good. So this is a champion that, you might build one copy early in the game to help you with things like Spider. And then late game, you probably end up building multiple copies of Soul Bonds and stun sets very fast for those secret rooms. And then the only other one I'd mention here is Berserker. You can farm him from campaign as well. He's a great secret room champion, so this is late game, just worth knowing about. He has a really hard-hitting AoE attack, and then he's got an extra turn mechanic here in his A2 as well. So he's actually a very good damage dealer for the spirits or an attack-based secret rooms for rares only. So that's sort of a late game champion. I've used him, he's very helpful. And then the rest, I would not bother with. All right, coming on to the Ogre and Tribes. Not that many in here. No surprise, most of them are really bad. Now, Bellower, I would say, is, again, one of those pretty much must-build rares for most people. Reason is very simple. A1, AoE attack. A2, AoE attack. A3, AoE attack. Every attack is an AoE. So for Faction Wars, for Ogre, for Doom Tower Hard, especially the waves, going through the waves, even going through dungeon waves, especially earlier in the game where you don't have other crowd control champions, you get Bellower in a stun set with good speed, and he can just keep doing these AoEs and keep stunning those enemy waves and actually helping you to get through. Right, so for Doom Tower Hard, getting through the different floors, that's the way that most people are going to do it the first time through, is with a really crowd control focused team. Going in with champions like Sill of the Drakes, Vizix from Login Rewards, Archmage Helmet from Doom Tower normal secret rooms, Bellower, maybe something like a Drexstar from the Tag Arena Bazaar. I've got videos on budget teams for Doom Tower Hard on the channel, but it's really good. And Bellower fits in perfectly, so he stays super relevant basically throughout the entire game. He's so good. His A1 even has a decent chance to block active skills, which doubles up really on his usefulness for those for Doom Tower Hard waves, especially Doom Tower normal waves too, going up against champions like Madame Ceres, Skytut Shaman, Sifi. What's another one that's really annoying? Warlord. They can be very annoying to deal with in these waves. He has those two chances: stun from a stun set and then block active skills from his A1 to lock them out. The other ones bring you some small debuffs, which can be useful too, or for waves, you can just have him only do his A1. It sort of depends, but he's a great champion. Another one to mention, Gear Grinder, I think for Faction Wars, is one worth holding on to. He's got actually a very good single target revive for a rare. Very good. And he brings some healing too. He can be useful for Hydra as well as a Mischief tank. He can do some stuff, but that's very gear intensive. But just as a rare that has a good single target revive for Faction Wars, he's worth considering. Gear Grinder, I'd definitely hold on to him. He's void, so he can be hard to get another copy. So I'd hold on to him at the very least and build him up if you need him for Faction Wars. Not a must build, but one worth holding on to. In the Lizards, only one here that I would consider, and that's Muckstalker, a recent claimant to fame. The reason being he has a 2-turn sleep on a 2-turn cooldown. Extremely rare, actually. He is currently, at time of recording, the only champion in the game. The only one who has a 2-turn sleep. He's got a better sleep than all the epics, all the legendaries. It's quite something. This is very useful for the new dungeon, the Sand Devil's Necropolis, the newest dungeon. He's actually viable all the way up to stage 24. I actually have a video on this with Muckstalker going in with like Geomancer and a few other champs like that, all the way up to stage 24. Where he's super viable. He's a great champion, so he's worth building if you need that Sand Devil team. So I would hold on to him because of that. You can farm him from campaign too, so if you want to just feed him and farm him when you need him, that's something that you can do. And yeah, the rest you can pretty much ignore. Again, there's always some things like Metal Shaper. Honestly, it's just not worth building. He's bad. Skullscorn can be good with Skull Lord Vargal for Faction Wars. There's some niche uses here, but I'm not going to talk about the super niche ones that most people won't do. Now, for the Skinwalkers, 2 champions here I think are worth mentioning. Gnarlhorn is properly good. So he comes in and he has an AoE provoke on a 3-turn cooldown, and he gives himself increased defense. Then he can make himself unkillable so he won't die. His A1 is just a filler move. The reason this guy is so strong, he is amazing again for that early game dungeon progression. Getting through those waves with the provoke just ensures that those enemies won't kill you, and in dungeons the waves are very slow. So you will be able to keep good uptime on this provoke, and he's just very effective for that early game progression. Really underrated champion in a lot of ways. And then for some of those secret rooms, he's also fantastic. So there's a really difficult rare HP secret room where actually I'd recommend building 2 Gnarlhorns for that ultimately. But this is a champion, if you need a crowd control champion early game, this guy is super worth building. He is worth putting to 60 for the survivability. Yeah, he's really good champ. Really strong. Fleshmonger is a pretty bad champion. He's not very good, but he might be worth holding on to. He comes in, he does have an AoE with a dodgy chance, but a chance nonetheless of the big version of decreased defense. So for Faction Wars, pretty decent. And for some of those secret rooms, he can be pretty decent as well. Put him in a stun set with a decreased defense, and he can be okay. He self-buffs himself as well. Not a great champion. He's pretty poor, but for doing what he does, I do think he's worth holding on to. Now, for the Orcs, fairly weak. Raider is another sort of late game secret room champion. I don't personally have her built, so she's not a necessary one, not a mandatory one, but she is very decent for the secret rooms. So she's one that you can pull later in the game. I wouldn't hold on to her early, and you could build up then. But one that I think is actually very good and underrated is Ironclad. The reason being this passive right here, when he's healed, he does an attack equal to the surplus heal. The reason that he's good, there are some meme compositions where you put out like decreased defense and weaken, and you build him in Savage, you full heal him and he nukes people down. That's just, it makes for a very fun video and stuff, but it's really useless in practice. What he's actually good for, I have a video on this, is you put him in a toxic set or a stun set with an immortal set, and then so long as he is full HP at the start of his turn, the immortal set does a tiny heal, he does a tiny attack, but that tiny attack is an AoE attack every time he takes a turn that will proc stun set or will proc toxic set. And it's actually bugged as well, I think because of War Master, that it will proc War Master, but certainly with the toxic set he can actually put out 2 poisons with this one hit, which isn't supposed to happen. So there's a fun bug right there. Makes him very useful. Again, there's a rare HP secret room which is very annoying, and this guy rips through it. He's going to be very good for Orc Faction Wars as well, pumping out either stuns or poisons with his passive. You do need those sets on him to really make it worthwhile, but he's worth holding on to. He's actually very useful for that. We come then to, wrong button, the Demonspawn. In Demonspawn, like Diabolist is not bad early game. Now, the ones I'd really be focusing on, I think Abyssal for faction wars can be quite good. There's some really nasty waves in Demonspawn, and Abyssal does have a small chance of block buffs on the A1. Brings a bit of heal on the A2, some buffs on the A3. Abyssal is not bad if you're really stuck for Demonspawn faction wars. So I might hold on to an Abyssal just in case it ends up being a champion you need if you get hard stuck in Demonspawn. I will briefly mention Hellborn is good for like some top end clan boss teams, but that's like super duper uber late game, end game. You're just having fun, not really relevant for anybody progressing. The only other champion I'd really be looking at here is Fellhound. Fellhound, again, he's void, so I'd hold on to him. He's hard to get, but he's very, very good because his A1 is an AoE that hits pretty hard. And if you build him up with enough stats, he's a very fast, in fact, the fastest campaign farmer in the game. And guess what? You're going to be doing a lot of campaign farming in this game. So he's a good replacement to that, say, your starter rare, whichever rare you started off with. Is probably going to be your campaign farmer for a long time. Fellhound can be worth building up to replace that. It will save you quite a bit of time in the long run. I think he can farm brutal 12-3 in, I think, 5 seconds. So he's very fast, very consistent. You get enough stats on him and he'll just do his A1 every single wave. It's got a really snappy animation, so he just blitzes through. So not necessary. You might have a better campaign farmer, but for a lot of folks, he is going to be your best option for that. So he's quite good. And that's all I'd be really looking for there. In the Undead Hordes, we got plenty of rares. Again, Corpulent Cadaver. This guy is really good for some of those super uber end game clan boss teams, but really not relevant to anybody progressing. You don't need to hold on to him. There's one champion here that I think is properly good, and that's Frozen Banshee. Just one of the best poisoners actually in the game. Crazy, but it's true. So for Dragon, for some Doom Tower bosses, for Clan Boss in particular, she will do an absolute ton of damage. So this is, for, again, most people, she's likely to be a must-build champion. She's likely to be your best poisoner by a landslide on most accounts, and will really up your Clan Boss damage. So Frozen Banshee is one of those must-keep champs. Like Doom Screech is kind of unique, but not really. I wouldn't really bother with the rest of them, to be honest. Dark Elves then is kind of one of our final factions with really good rares, I would say, and we got some exception ones. So let's address the elephant in the room first. Coldheart is the best rare in the game. Ultimately, I'd say you could probably build about 4 copies of Coldheart, potentially more. You can really build a lot of copies of Coldheart. But because she has this enemy max HP hit with the 100% turn meter deplete, just god tier for Spider and for Fire Knight, and very useful for some other stuff as well. Faction Wars 2, some Doom Tower stuff. Her A1 is a 4-hitter. This is super good against the Fire Knight shield. She does have smart AI against Fire Knight, so she will just do her A1 while the shield is up, and then she'll A3 when his turn meter is high and the shield is down. So she's very smart for that. This is one of the best champs in the game, honestly. She's so useful and a must build. Paragon is another weird one because he gives himself unkillable on a 2-turn cooldown for 2 turns. He can be permanently unkillable, so you can build some really cheesy compositions with him. This can help you beat the final boss of Nightmare Campaign. This can help you cheese the Spider Dungeon. This can help you cheese a few different bosses in the game. He can solo, like, I think, Nether Spider with a Toxic set. He can do some pretty wacky stuff. So Paragon, I definitely hold on to him. And if you're hard stuck on a boss somewhere and you need to beat it using some sneaky, cheesy strategies, you can do that with him. Painkeeper is properly good just in general, and she really opens up several different clan boss teams, and also the Iron Twins Fortress. She's a key to some of those teams as well. The reason being that she does bring some cooldown reduction, which is very helpful for some of those speed tunes. So I think, for example, in Sand Devil, I think you use like 3 Painkeepers in one team. So definitely hold on to multiple copies of her if you're stuck on, Sand Devil, on Iron Twins. If you're stuck on Iron Twins, you can hold on to up to 3 Painkeepers. Great champion though in general. She's got a nice heal on her A2. This cooldown reduction is super good. So she's going to be very helpful, healing your team through the early game, and then late game, clan boss teams, and Iron Twins. And then finally, I will mention Judge as being a pretty good secret room champion. You don't need him early in the game, but later in the game he's good. He's pretty quick, and then he has an AoE with 2 hits here that gives him turn meter, so he's nice and quick. And then this is what makes him quite good. Every hit has a small chance to put these pretty big debuffs, which can be very helpful for those secret rooms. Secret rooms are incredibly hard in Doom Tower Hard. And this is very random. You're rolling the dice, but hey, you can just run them over and over and over again until you get that one run where stuff rolls well and it works out. So again, Judge is a good one. You run him very quick in a stun set, and he just sort of pumps out lots of debuffs, and it's quite helpful. So he's one that's worth building later game, but you don't need to hold on to him early. Nice Revenant. Early game MVP, really, I'd say, is Coffin Smasher. Fantastic clan boss champion early. Bit less damage from AoE. HP burn does really good damage against the clan boss. And then a triple hit A1 with a good chance of putting decreased attack. So he really helps your survivability. He's nice and tanky. If you get him early on, he's probably going to be a shoe-in to your clan boss team, most likely, for a very long time. He's very, very good. Build him up to level 60, give him Giant Slayer because he's got a triple hit A1, and he's going to put out good damage. You get him Revenge accessories, chance to counterattack. It's going to add up to good damage with Giant Slayer and the burn, and the decreased attack and the passive help you stay alive. So he's a great champion early game. Once you're later in the game, he becomes useless, but early game, he's very good. And then Renegade is a late game, even MVP. The reason being, she has a 2-turn cooldown reduction on her A3. So this opens up a lot of speed farming teams later in the game in dungeons. So she's well worth holding on to. You can build multiple copies. Maybe 2 copies of Renegade is fairly common to build. You run 2 of them in the same team. So for things like Poison Explosion teams, for teams with Seer to one-shot waves in Doom Tower Hard, you can build with her. It's a bit awkward because it's only 2-turn cooldown, but for a lot of those teams it is good enough, funny enough. So yeah, something to watch out for. You can be reliant on like Mastery procs to give you another turn of cooldown reduction, or Seer getting an A1 proc, for example, but great champion, definitely worth holding on to. Final 3 factions then, and there's really very few rares here. Well, actually there's tons of rares in the dwarves, but there's very few ones that are actually good and worth building. Master Butcher you may want to hold on to. One of the hardest bosses in this game is Bommel in the 3rd rotation of Doom Tower. You could get hard stuck on Bommel, even on normal. Master Butcher can help. I've not used him personally, but I've heard other people use him to great success. He gives you a big heal whenever he takes damage, so the bombs on Bommel exploding should give a massive heal to your team. And then when he dies, he'll revive a random ally with full HP. So this can be exactly what you need to get through. I would look up specific team builds for Master Butcher with Bommel, but if you get stuck on Bommel, I might hold on to one Master Butcher at least to try to help with that, if you don't have multiple Vogots. And then the only other one that I would really mention here is Bulwark, very like Coffin Smasher, early game, clan boss champion. He has a small weaken on his A1, he has a HP burn on his A2, and he can extend debuffs on the clan boss on his passive, and that's basically it. So early game, he's very useful for clan boss. Once you're a few months in, he becomes entirely useless though. But early game, he's definitely one to look out for. We come to the Shadowkin. Honestly, these are all pretty much useless. Bloodmask Marauder are okay for some of the HP secret rooms, but there's better options in my opinion. They're usable, but not, I wouldn't bother. And then for Sylvan Watchers, again, Pathfinder Kate, she's pretty decent, but there's tons of other options. You don't need to bother with her. Maybe you could hold on to her for Faction Wars, because she's going to be pretty good for that. Put her in a stun set. She brings you some control. Could be good for Faction Wars and okay for secret rooms, but she's not a must-have. And there you go, guys. So this is my list that I was working off. These are the champions that I'm recommending, and I did mark in where they're good. If they've got no marking, it means they're sort of generally good. But yeah, a few High Elves, no Bannerlords, no Sacred Order, a few Barbarians, couple of Ogres, Lizards, couple of Skinwalkers, couple of Orcs, couple of Demons, Frozen Banshee, very good. Really strong ones in Dark Elves, Night Rev, and then that's basically it. You can't see, but Sylvan Watcher, Shadowkin, nothing. So there we go, guys. Let me know if there's any that I left out that you would definitely include. There are other ones that are usable. They're fine. They might actually be kind of useful for you. But again, I just think there's going to be so few rares that you actually end up building. And I wanted to make it very clear with this as well, what some of those requirements are, the situationalness of quite a few of these. Like a lot of the ones I mentioned are for secret rooms, which is more of a late game thing. And then I wanted to make clear as well which ones are good for you early game. So for a new player, you actually know, oh, I might actually build up this champion right now, and they might actually be very helpful for me. So there you go, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.